welcome to the Happy Healthy Human podcast. I'm Coach Kara.
And I'm Coach Lauren. So on this podcast, we always cover, we're a little rusty, 5 factors of health, which is movement, nutrition, connection, mindset, rest, and recovery. Today, we're going to be talking about stress management. So basically what we do to manage stress, how that helps with our recovery, all that jazz.
Amazing.
But before we get into it, I have not gotten to catch up with you. I feel like this is our catch up.
I know.
Literally.
I know. It's been since like mid-December, I think.
Yep, mid-December, because you covered for me, and then I came back, there were fires, and then you went to Taiwan.
Yep.
And then here we are.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear about your trip a little bit from when you were in Rio?
Rio. Oh, in Brazil?
In Brazil.
Well, I think we talked about Brazil a little bit. Already.
Okay, never mind.
But I went home to Indiana and saw my family.
Yay.
That was sweet.
Yeah. I think that we had actually talked about that on one of the podcasts when you were preparing to go home about like what you were hoping to do in terms of like exercise with your family and everything.
Yep. It has been a minute for us.
Yeah. Well, how was that?
It was good. It was pretty calm. I think literally my mind has been more of like got back beginning of the year and then Pasadena Altadena was on fire.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were affected by it at all.
So whenever the fire started, like from my front yard, I could see the Eaton fire starting. So like right up, like, you know, it was like 11 miles away from my house, but like I could see it burning down the hill, which was really scary. Thankfully, like my home was not affected in any way. I was not evacuated or anything. But obviously like my heart was going out to everyone up there because like, you know, with the way the winds were, it was so scary. It
was terrifying. Yeah. I was actually coaching that night and it was fine. We did like, people were running outside for the workout.
Yeah.
And then I go home at 5:36. I'm going home at around 7:00 and I'm freaking out driving because I'm just realizing there's trees following. Like I then see the fire in the hills and I'm like, oh my gosh, I kept praying and hoping that it was a house on fire and then realizing, no, this is the mountains on fire. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I got to my house, I actually started to pack up my stuff because there was smoke all around and like ash by my house. Because it ended up being, I live in Altadena Drive where Eaton Canyon fire started, but I was on the other side of the 210. But I paced out for like 3 days.
Oh my God.
Just in case.
Wait, so was your house in the like evacuation zone or was it just like a little too close for comfort?
It was just too close for comfort because I could see everything from my house. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know what with these winds, like what's about to happen. And so my gut was just like, I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah.
And then thankfully it didn't pass the 210. But obviously we knew there were so many other things.
Oh my God. I know, it was so scary. Like, I think the good thing in terms of like for reason was that I think we only had 2 or 3 members that were like impacted by it, whether it was like family members or their own home that had like a little bit of damage, but we made it out like unscathed for the most part. But I think just like seeing the effect of like some like gyms, especially up closer to that area that got either like burned or who had a lot of members lose homes, like it was just so sad to see what that process looked like. But I think it was cool to see like the rise of all of the communities to help each other out.
Yeah, totally. I know. I remember I was like, we were texting and calling all the members, seeing how everybody was. And Peter Lynn, I was like, how are you doing with the virus? He's like, oh, I'm overseas. And I was like, okay, maybe don't come back for a couple of weeks.
Just stay there.
The air quality's not that great here. He was like, thanks for checking in.
Oh my gosh.
So it made me laugh. I was like, oh, well, you're fine. You're in another country. You won't be affected by this.
It was just so crazy. But
yeah.
It seems like for the most part, it's like, now everything can start to like rebuild and kind of come back to life. But I think it's gonna be a long road. But
yeah, for sure.
Glad that you made it out and your home was safe. And
home is safe and I feel good. I've been running outside and so hopefully it's okay. But
we'll find out about that.
We'll find out later on.
Oh my God,
remember me. Think of me. But before we get into all this, how was Taiwan? You went to Taiwan and Japan, right?
Yeah. It was so fun. So I was gone for a little over 2 weeks. Japan was amazing. That was more of like the vacation part of it. So we just like went around Tokyo and Kyoto. And it was just like fun eating everything and just seeing like how different the culture is there. Like everything is kind of slowed down, which is really cool. So like if you go to a coffee shop, nobody takes their food to go. You like are expected to sit down and drink the whole thing there. And I feel like it's nice because it forces you to just like take a second. And then after Japan, we went to Taiwan for the Lunar New Year. That was really fun because it was just like chill, hung out with family for that week and just had time to like relax before we came back and like hit the ground running again.
Literally. But you hadn't had a vacation since you got married, I don't think.
Yeah, it had been like a little bit. We had gone on like weekend trips here and there, but for the most part, like taking time off of work was when
just
our
like
wedding happened.
Go get out of the country.
Yeah,
literally.
It was nice.
Oh man. Well, we're here.
Yeah, and talk about stress management and taking vacations.
I know, literally. It's been a stressful season. That's where we were like, oh yeah, we haven't done the podcast because, some life has happened.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'd be curious to know like maybe your journey with stress and then how you have learned to manage stress, especially at being an athlete and a coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that in, I guess like maybe my senior year of high school into college was like the first like real experience I had with feeling stress, more so around like homework and relationships and things like that. A lot of those things feel like very minor now compared to like other things you face going into adulthood. But I think that from then going into like work was like a whole new kind of beast. I worked in a corporate job for a very like brief stint, and then I went into working at Lululemon, and both of those jobs had different types of stress. But I would say that corporate job I worked really taught me what like real adult stress feels like, where you're sitting in traffic I sat in traffic for almost 3 hours a day.
No, that's too much.
Which was terrible. Never commute from
now you're always
LA
on your
to
feet.
Azusa. Yeah. And then Lulu had its own stress because I was managing a lot of people and there were a lot of moving parts to the store. But I think that at the time I wasn't necessarily 100% sure about how to manage stress, but the gym really opened my eyes to how to relieve stress. I think that once I found a routine that I really enjoyed with working out, that became this like really nice stress reliever. Because when I was in college, it's like I played a sport. So I had that stress relief like 3 hours a day in the middle of the day, no matter what. You were going in, working out, going to practice, or going to the weight room. And I think that was really, really helpful. So in adulthood, it was really important to find that like same routine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you found that exercise has helped you with stress relief in any way?
Yeah. I mean, I am a highly like anxious person already. I think how some people they deal with depression and some people are more anxiety driven. And I think I'm more anxiety driven, where it's just like I would wake up sometimes with like anxiety and not know what to do with it. I do know when I was like younger, one way I'd cope with stress naturally is just go on like really long runs or go on walks outside, and that would calm me down. And then another thing, like I think they'll go into unhealthy ways of like coping with stress. That could be like addiction. It could be whatever. Mine was overeating. So I would like binge eat.
Yeah.
And that was like a big thing for me is I would just like consume a ton of food and then be like more stressed again.
Totally.
So I would then work out to like compensate. So I'd create this like really crazy flow of like overeating and exercising, which exercising I would say positive, but it was more to like the swing. And so that was something I had to deal with throughout the years, is like how to have a healthy relationship with food. Because realizing if I'm putting in like good, healthy food in an appropriate manner, like then I'm also like, it's going to complement my exercising.
I think that's like so real for a lot of people, is the using food as a coping mechanism. And I think that can start with like starting off with like, what are the negative coping mechanisms, which I think that binge eating affects so many people. That's what I experienced in college, was that kind of cycle of I'm exercising because I binged last night over stress. So I'm exercising for hours today to compensate for the food I ate. So now I'm feeling more stressed that maybe I didn't exercise enough. I'm going to binge eat again tonight.
And then your body's like,
vicious cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be in so many ways, those cycles. Like people can do a ton of things to be able to cope with their stress. But yeah, that was definitely mine. So very similar. And then I think was interesting, the pandemic, I started having panic attacks. So
really?
I think how my body coped, I was working out a lot too, just to find a way to manage stress. And it was like still not helping, where I couldn't public speak. Like I could hardly talk for over a minute or two publicly. and then I'd have a panic attack. So that was a huge bump. Actually, coaching kind of helped me get out of it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, were you coaching at the time?
I started coaching like a year after the pandemic, and that helped me kind of get out of that fear of public. But it would rise up at times where I was like, I don't think I'll ever be able to public speak again.
Yeah.
Because of my anxiety. And then I think just over time, I just kept changing my mindset, and just, I think exercising has helped. I really focused on like getting a ton of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just was like, I'm going to put good people around myself to like help with my stress management. Cause there's a lot of things like the pandemic or fires we can't control, but I'm like, what can I put in place that can help me manage my stress? Because there's so many things that are going to like be out of our control. Like I could not control that I was having panic attacks, but I could control my sleep, or I could control like my caffeine intake, which I don't control that anymore lately, but and I'm doing okay, thankfully.
You're like, not when I'm waking up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's actually true. I know I'm like chugging my like electrolytes in my coffee, and I'm like, well, I'm alive. I'm here, people.
Was there a moment when you were having your panic attacks, either during the pandemic or after, that you were like, I need to make a change like right now? Or was it more like a gradual, like, maybe if I implement this, it could help? Or?
I mean, I never had panic attacks before then. I'd always been like a public speaker. It was mainly it was connected to public speaking or teaching, which I was like teaching an online class, like coaching. And so I was like, I got to figure this out. Mm-hmm. So the only way I knew what to do was to like go through it. And then I was like, I'm going to try to make as many health changes as I can. Mm. And so I'm definitely one that's like, I'm going to try to fix this as best as I can to my ability. And then also I kind of just surrender, like, this might just be my thing where I can't really public speak anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of had to be okay with that, almost like weakness, and then see where could I be strong. So I could be strong like in growing as an athlete. I could be strong in like growing in my nutrition or my mindset. Like I really tried to focus on like, okay, what is in my power of how I think about myself? Because I was like mad at myself. I'm like, body, why are you not working with me? Like, why can't you function the way I want it to? And so I had to be like, okay, this is where my body's at because it's responding. Like anxiety is a response. It's my body speaking to me that it's freaked out, which makes sense. Like we went through this crazy pandemic. So I think I had to like almost like build self-compassion in the way that I talk to myself, which I use a lot actually in how I am an athlete or a coach, is like when there's a day that I'm like, I sucked as a coach. I'm like, okay, well, what did you do well? What'd you suck at? Great. Like, what can you change? You know? So I'll like talk to myself all the time.
Yeah.
Talk myself through it.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people don't do, is know how to have self-compassion and how to actually talk to yourself, because it can feel kind of uncomfortable to reflect on, especially when you've done something maybe not so great and you need to reflect and give yourself like your own feedback. That can kind of be like uncomfortable to think about, because I don't think anyone really wants to look at themselves really negatively. Well, everyone's different.
Some people like feed off of negativity.
Yeah. So I was going to say, because like younger Kara was like the most negative person in the world, and I worked on that.
And maybe it worked for you for a season. You know what I mean?
I think that's where like really bad habits were actually instilled, and that's when the stress was at its highest. Because I think that when you're in a really like vulnerable place where either stress is high or maybe you're not feeling good about yourself, that's when the negative talk gets really bad, and you can fall into that pit of like, well, I'll just stress eat, or I'll just stay up all night doom scrolling on my phone. Yeah. You know? But I think that it's really cool that you found that like awareness to be like, okay, these things are not right, and I want to take control over how I feel. So you just like implemented these like pretty simple things right into your routine. Yeah. So, and I was going to say too, you touched on social media, I took off Instagram because it was affecting my mental health. Yeah. And so I got off Instagram, and then, which, not saying it affects everyone that way, just for me personally, like it was addictive. I was spending like 2 hours a day, and I was like, I just don't feel good about myself right now. Yeah. But for other people that might be like, hey, this is so life-giving, whatever. But just for me, I realized I had to start taking out things that were negatively affecting me. Yeah. And so that could be so many other things. But yeah, I'd be interested to know if there's anything like stress-wise you've been doing lately to manage, you know, in your busy life, because your life is probably just going to get busier and busier. Yeah. I think that a couple of things were when I was on the trip, like actually on vacation. At nighttime, I fell into a really bad habit of like scrolling through my phone. And when I got home, which was only like a week and a half ago, I was doing the same thing every night. And finally I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like that I'm staring at this like little tiny screen all night. And then when I get into bed, I'm just watching a little bit of TV. Like, I don't like doing that. And so I haven't actually implemented this yet. So I will keep you updated if it works.
We will connect with you next time.
But in the past, Alfred and I at nighttime would build like a puzzle, or we would do something that doesn't involve a screen. So I ordered a couple of adult coloring books and got some markers that I was like really excited about. And I'm hoping to be able to implement that instead of looking at my screen before bed. One, I have been having some trouble sleeping lately, which causes a little bit more stress. And so my goal is that if I can do something non-screen related or looking at things that do spike either like anxiety or stress in my life, which is literally Instagram. You know, you go on the explore page and you're seeing things and all you're doing is comparing yourself. I'm just trying to remove that and then do something that's a little bit more focused on like a little lower brain stimulation and just like no, you know, blue light in my eyes before bed. So I'll keep you guys updated.
Yeah, keep us posted. Keep us posted. Yeah, I was thinking about, you know, like what would we even talk to members? Because, you know, members have so many things going on that are stress factors in their life. And how I know for me personally, like when I am stressed, I tend to overeat more. I tend to pick not the best foods. I tend to maybe like, not sleep as much. Or I know it was like a week or two ago, I remember I was stressed and I was trying to do a push jerk. And I think you saw me fail it. I was like, I can't do it. It's not my day. And I had to listen. I was like, oh, I can't get this weight over my head right now because my body doesn't feel well. And just having to listen to your body and be like, okay, well, then what am I going to do? I remember that next day I was like, I'm going to take a rest day and just go low. And then I was able to come back and feel really good as an athlete. But it is interesting how it can affect our mindset in the gym if we're stressed.
Yeah.
And it could be something completely unrelated to us as athletes or so I was just thinking about that of like, oh yeah, it can like really affect who we are
100%.
when we're stressed.
I think like going on a little bit of a tangent, that's why I really like how our gym implemented RPE.
Yeah.
Because
you have to listen to your body.
Yeah. We have so many members that their jobs are extremely high stress. They have multiple children. Some people are single, but their job is what kind of rules their life. Like there's different things that our members go through that makes their workouts harder. And I think that when we implemented RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion, right? So it's basically like, how are you feeling today? We're gonna base this number off of how you feel today. It's given people the chance to come in and be like, I actually don't feel good today, whether it's I'm under recovered or I'm very stressed about a project at work or something. It just allows them to make a decision of how they want their workout to go versus us standing there and being like, okay, if you are a Thrive athlete or a scaled athlete, you're doing this weight. And if you're performing, you're at this weight. I think it just allows them to have honestly a better workout and just be really in tune with themselves. And I think that overall, that's the goal, is just be in tune with your own body and mind and self so that you can make decisions for overall better health.
Yeah. I think of like what you actually need at that moment. And there's times though, I'm like, I'll push myself through something because I almost am like, I'm stressed. Well, I'm going to just be present in this workout and I'm going to kill it. Because that actually helps my stress sometimes. Yeah, so there's some days where I'm like, let's say this morning, I had to do a 6-mile run. And I was like, I don't want to. And I was like, I'm going to do it because I know I'll feel so much better afterwards. Yeah. I did it. And I was like, I'm really glad I did it. I'm glad that I got checked off my list. I felt accomplished. And it helps relieve some of my stress. I think I would have been more stressed if I was waiting to think of doing it later today.
Totally.
And so it is interesting of like, there are different times where it's like when to push through those emotions and when to say like, I'm going to like listen to what my body is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so not saying there's an answer to that, but
totally. Well, and there's gonna be days where you feel really, really good and you're like, I can actually push myself like 100% today and like actually test the limits. But you know, it's all about just understanding your body and how you feel and just being aware of what's going on. For women, like we live basically on a cycle. Hormones. So we need to be, we have to be aware of that. For men, stress levels, like they just go up and down throughout the month. So it's just important to be in
Sometimes
tune.
The guys show more of their stress levels than our ladies do. So not to call them out.
We won't get into that too much.
I'm not going to say name names. I'll be like, oh, they're having a day. They're having a day.
Are there any like tools? So now that you're off social media, which I always think is really like inspiring, honestly, because I feel like especially in like my generation, like that's what people do for fun is like when you go home, you're just on your phone. What have you implemented in place of that? Like what fills your time basically when you go home from work?
Yeah. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. So there's like a couple podcasts like Bear
What are your
Performance
favorite?
Nutrition with Nick Bear, Sally McRae. She's an ultra distant runner person that's like so inspiring. There's a lady named Andrea Allen. She is a fitness professional and talks about women's health, nutrition, all of that because she's an expert in that area of like talking about hormones and how that affects our eating and who we are as athletes. So those are a couple that I'll listen to, and then I'll watch like documentaries on YouTube. So I'm still on YouTube, and then I'm hanging out with friends or like honestly cooking. I feel like cooking and cleaning take up like a time after we're working.
Oh yeah,
you know
it's
what
like
I mean?
your whole life.
It takes like an hour and a half for me to like make a meal and then clean, then I want to go to bed. So I'm like,
it's like a part-time job.
Yeah, literally I'm like, oh my gosh, all the respect to people that do this all the time. I'm like, I can't do this all the time. So I feel like that takes up my time. So my brain is always full.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think I'm a little bit more present. And actually I was writing down earlier, kind of processing this podcast. I was really thinking, oh, I love being at the gym or I love running because that's the one task I can do. Like I'm fully present. Like coaching, I'm fully present. Running, I'm fully present. Or doing my workout, that WOD of the day, I'm fully present. And I think that's why I like it because my mind can go so many places usually throughout the day. I'm like doing 10 things at a time unless I stay really focused and present. And when I do 10 things at a time, that's when I get really stressed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. Like whenever you're actually committing yourself to something and you're like, okay, for the next 20 minutes, this is all I'm going to think about. It can help you just relieve all the other stress of what you're doing during the day and just focus on that one thing. So I think that's really great. Now, when you're doing those things at home, do you typically have like the podcast in the background or you like silence in the house?
No silence.
Noise at all times.
Half. Lately it's been podcast. It motivates me.
Oh, I love that.
But I mean, you live with Alfred, so you're probably just listening to him.
Oh, well, I just yap his ear off all night the second he walks in the door. But
you're like, let me tell you every single thing about my life.
Yeah, but I think I do similar things when I get home, just trying to keep things like as calm and relaxing at home as possible.
Well, yeah, because you're extroverting literally all day long with people, which is not bad, but you're constantly pouring into people, listening, all that. So someone needs to be able to listen to you.
Yeah, 100%. It's my turn. But yeah, I think like when it comes to stress management, like
I was going to ask you about that.
It's just important to find the things that you enjoy that are really like, I keep saying like really low stimulating activities. Like when my brain can just kind of shut off and just focus on that thing that I'm doing in the moment, whether it's going to be my coloring books that I'm going to get into this week, or it's like building a puzzle at home. Like if you're setting yourself down being like, this is all I'm going to do in the next 30 minutes, then you can be so much more productive and calm and just thinking about one thing versus all the other things in life.
Yeah. I had a question for you too with that. So what have you seen work for members or people that you've worked with? I mean, you have all types of clients that you've worked with over the years, but like, is there anything that you've seen like, oh, this has really helped them in their stress management? You know, because we both shared a little bit of us, but I don't know if you've seen like a common theme.
Yeah. Number one is going to be sleep.
If you can get it.
Yeah, 100%, especially with a lot of the like single busy professionals that I work with. So these are mainly people that don't have kids. Being able to focus on how much sleep they can get makes a giant difference in their energy and their stress level going into work the next day. So I have quite a few people that their work carries them either into the night or once they're done for the day, they go home, eat dinner, and then
some people have
more.
wild schedules I've been talking to.
Yeah. So the goal is like we need to have a very clear cutoff time for you every day where it's a non-negotiable so that you can get X amount of hours of sleep. That's been a huge one. And then for anyone that is extremely busy, taking the stress out of their meals. So trying to like bulk cook on Sunday evening so that they have their food ready for the day. That has removed their stress a ton because they don't even have to think anymore about what they're going to eat. It's already packaged up for them. Even doing a meal prep service, that has been successful for a couple
So
of my
nice.
clients. So, yeah, I think anything that they can do to prepare themselves well for whatever is coming at them the next day, that's going to set them up for more success.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
we always talk about sleep and nutrition because they're such important pillars. But like,
I think they're huge.
We're not lying when we say how important it is to make sure you give yourself that time to either cook up your food, have a plan in place, or just get more hours of sleep.
Yeah. And I honestly think people who come to the gym here are managing stress, you know, like, is this your place to just like let everything out, like have a good workout, get a good sweat, talk to some people, and then relieve that so you can go back home.
Yeah. And I think that's what works for a lot of parents that have kids is that giving themselves this hour where it's literally probably the 1 hour a day where they can actually only think about themselves. It gives them that space where it's like, I don't have to worry about my little people that I need to take care of. I don't need to worry about my spouse. I can literally just do this for me. That is huge. So making sure that we commit to, can we come 3 times a week? That's giving you 3 hours a week to really take care of just you. And that alone can make a really big difference with their stress levels.
Stress management, yeah. And getting to your goals. Because I think if you can manage your stress, it's way easier. You're thinking more clearly to then be able to make wise decisions for the goals that you want to do for your health.
Yeah.
Because if I'm stressed and I'm walking at Trader Joe's, I'm getting dark chocolate peanut butter cups and I'm eating the whole thing. When I'm not stressed, I'm like, I'll get this salad to go.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. I've had both scenarios in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, totally. So I think just like really falling in tune with your body and understanding like what your stress responses are and how you actually want to respond to it can be really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right.
Stress. It
Stress.
happens.
It's going to happen throughout the year.
It's gonna happen. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you have any other questions around stress or managing, comment on Instagram, YouTube. You
Come
can
talk
DM
to us.
Yeah, come to Reason. We'll talk to you about it. Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Human podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.